working this week. Today, we're going to be talking all about endometriosis treatments and obviously the natural treatments that I'm all about. So thank you for joining me. If you're here with me live, feel free to leave a comment and let me know where you're at, how you're feeling today. And look forward to hearing from you guys today. So I am going to be talking all about the rosemary today. So we've got rosemary as our tea option today. So that is my rosemary there, fresh out of the garden. And I wanted to talk about rosemary because it is one of the most fabulous herbs that it's quite easy to grow, particularly if you are not such a, if you're not that good at gardening, because I know I'm not that good at gardening. But rosemary, you can stick in some water, just refresh the water. Just literally snip off a piece, stick it in some water and leave it there, and make sure you refresh that water every now and again. But then you will have, eventually you will have some roots growing, and that will start the whole process. So if you're here, let me just know if you're here, because I can't tell if this is actually working today or not. Let's have a look if this is actually working. I can't see if this is working or not. Let's have a look. It is working. Yay. Okay, good. It's sometimes hard to tell when you're using these things. All right, so rosemary. Let's talk about rosemary because this is one of my favorite teas. And as usual, I have brought out my favorite book about herbs. This is the book by Matthew Wood, and I'll pop that in the chat for you guys because it is such a fabulous a really fabulous author, and just writes about herbs in a very kind of, how do I say, it's not just, oh, this is what herbs do, but you actually get a little bit of the energetics of herbs, which makes it a lot more enjoyable to find out about them. Okay, so let me read you some stuff. So rosemary stimulates metabolism, enhancing the burning and consumption of blood sugars and fats. It thus warms, cleans, oxidizes throughout the body. So when we think about endometriosis, I do want you to think about blood and not just your uterus and your ovaries, but blood, because blood is part of the bigger picture here. Through nerve stimulation, it increases muscle activity via the parasympathetic, thus strengthening arteries, stomach, intestines, gall passage, and heart, while relaxing the sympathetic. Now, I don't know how much of these you have watched, but I did talk about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in one of these. I can't recall exactly which one it was, but if anyone knows, feel free to share in the comments. But I think I might have talked about it in one of the stress-related ones. But essentially, your parasympathetic and sympathetic are the key ones that you want to focus on when it comes to stress. And we want to get into a parasympathetic. And rosemary helps us do that. So hence why I like my rosemary. But the biggest thing here is that the catabolic process of liver are increased. So it's recognized to be good for cold, sluggish liver and gallbladder conditions. Now, coming round today, what we're going to be talking about is treatment options, natural treatment options for endometriosis. And when we look at endometriosis, it is not a hormone-based condition. Even though many of the treatments are based purely on hormones, yes, it is part of the picture, but it is not the complete picture. A lot of the picture comes back to why is there hormone dysregulation? And that's the question I want you to ask. So if you have got hormone imbalances, if you have got too much estrogen, why is the question that I want you to ask? Because it's all good and well to say, okay, there's estrogen dominance, and that is part of the reason why you have endometriosis growing and getting worse. But we need to understand, why is there estrogen dominance? That is a symptom, not a true cause of endometriosis. So, but when we look at Rosemary, there is a loop here, because the liver helps you flush out excess estrogen. So if there is elevation of estrogen, and oftentimes that is because of environmental toxins, that there will be an elevation of estrogen, that is why we need to support the liver to get rid of those. And Rosemary is now going to be your best friend in doing that. So that is why I recommended it. Now, it is something, I actually drink this more because it really helps with your brain function and focus. So here is one that I really like. One of my clients uses rosemary instead of coffee to stay awake while driving. Because it can actually be overstimulating for the mind. So don't drink this in the evening. It's, really good for you to have as you would a coffee. So when you're needing that sort of booster, that's when I recommend having it. Okay, so let me see. Anyone here? We have some viewers. So if you're here with me, feel free to share with me, what treatment are you currently on? What treatment are you currently considering? Where are you at within your journey? And then we can dive in a little bit more in terms of natural treatment options for endometriosis, because I really want to know where you're at, because then I can help you better if I know where you're at. So, right, endometriosis treatment options. Now, there's 3 areas that I focus on when it comes to endometriosis treatment. And when I first kind of went on this whole natural journey, my main focus was on hormones, because through going to see my gynae and doctors, they were always focusing on hormones. So they would put me on the pill or some kind of hormone treatment. And so my thinking was, well, if I want to do this naturally, I just got to have an alternative. So I'll just find something else that can help modulate my hormones. And that thinking isn't completely incorrect, but having now studied for 7 years and knowing a lot more about endometriosis, it is not the full picture. So there's actually a very interesting cycle that happens with hormone imbalance. And part of it is the stress, kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, sort of the hierarchy of stress. So when you're stressed, the body will use up a lot of the things that it needs to make cortisol. So particularly your cholesterol, which is the fats that your body needs to make hormones. And so if you're very stressed, it'll use up those resources to make cortisol. But it also uses up other resources. So it also uses up a lot of the B vitamins, which actually your body also needs to then support the liver health, which is a bigger picture. But ultimately, if you think about it, kind of like a pyramid, if you're very stressed, then there's a downregulation effect on all the other hormones in the body. And so oftentimes when women have got hormone imbalances, so the way that you can tell if you have hormone imbalance is you will have a lot of the PMS type symptoms. Particularly, PMS is basically premenstrual syndrome, so it is before your period. So typically that would include things like sore breasts, change in bowel movements before your period, migraines, skin breakouts, being moody or irritable just before your period, feeling really, really bloated, so water retention, that kind of thing. So those are kind of indicators that there is a hormone imbalance. And So if you have those, those could indicate that there is actually some kind of imbalance going on. But when you're very, very stressed, those kind of PMS symptoms tend to elevate. One of the other biggest ones, which often we dismiss, is poor sleep patterns. So a lot of women will come to me and they're like, oh, I have these major hormone imbalances and I'm doing all these things. I'm taking all these supplements. I'm shifting my diet. I'm doing all these things. But they haven't covered the basics of hormone imbalance, which is sleep. And if you're not sleeping properly, if you're going to bed late and, not following the normal circadian rhythm of sleep patterns, then that will affect your hormone balance. So normal circadian rhythms should be going to bed 9:30, being to sleep by 10:30, and then waking, sort of 8 hours later. So we do need 8 hours. There's a lot of research to back this up. And most of us don't do this. Most of us stay up late. Maybe we get up later. We think, oh, well, I can get up later, or I can make up the hours later in the week or on the weekends or whatever. That doesn't work. So we really want to get into a better sleep routine, and that means shifting your whole way that you go about your evenings. So a lot of us will sit up late watching TV and I don't know, whatever people do, sitting up late on the internet, researching, not really that good for you. You really want to have a little sleep routine to actually get you into a state where you can sleep really well. Working late, sitting on the computer late, watching TV, all of these things can be very stimulating, and therefore it's actually very hard to sleep and sleep well. Now, when you're not sleeping well, that will affect your hormone balance, and hormone imbalance is what I consider a symptom of endometriosis. It is certainly part of the picture, but it is not the complete picture. Any questions on this, guys? If you're here with me, feel free to share your comments and, let me be there for you if you have questions, because I can't help you if I don't know what your questions are. So feel free to, let me know. I'm going to try and have some of my rosemary tea. I think it's still a bit hot. Yeah, it is still a bit hot. Okay, so 3 key areas that we focus on with endometriosis. Number 1 is hormone balance, hormone imbalance. Number 2 is actually inflammation and what is triggering that inflammation. And number 3 is the immune system. So we need to look at all 3 of those when we treat endometriosis naturally. And all of them overlap. So if you have inflammation going on and a heightened inflammation in the body, that will have an effect on the estrogen. So the mast cells that get released through inflammation actually have an effect on estrogen. So higher the mast cells, higher the estrogen. So let me just say that again. When you have heightened inflammation, your body releases mast cells, which are part of the picture of inflammation, and those have an effect on estrogen and elevation of estrogen. Elevated estrogen then has an effect on the histamine release, which is part of the same picture of inflammation. So you can see here that it's not one or the other. They work in unison. And that's why a lot of women, when they go on an anti-inflammatory diet and they actually look at inflammation and how to lower inflammation, a lot of the PMS type symptoms will also be alleviated in that process. The interesting thing is when you look at hormone imbalance, a lot of the same foods that you would recommend for inflammation would naturally support hormone balance as well, because they tend to be similar. They tend to be focusing on the liver and how to support the liver, supporting your digestive system, making sure you're getting enough fiber, which helps flush out the excess hormones in the body. Okay, so The inflammation that is going on is what is ultimately causing the pain, the adhesions. The inflammation is what is triggering that heightened response. And I want you to think of inflammation like an alarm bell, so these cells are dispersed in the abdominal cavity, and there's an alarm bell going on, and that alarm bell is what signals the immune system to then step in and help to heal this. It's trying to heal this. But that alarm bell is part of the problem because it is heightened. It is elevated. It is too much. It is thinking that these dispersed cells in the abdomen are a huge problem, but actually the body can just clean those up. So what we want is that the immune system just steps in and just cleans up those cells. And there's a really interesting study that showed that 40% of women actually do this. Their bodies naturally just clean up those cells. So 90% of women have these dispersed random cells all over the place, but 40% of women just clean them up, no problems. When the body doesn't just clean them up, that's when it develops into endometriosis, because the immune system is recognizing these dispersed cells as a major problem. It's like really overreacting towards these cells. And that's why there is heightened inflammation. That's why there's adhesions, because your body is thinking that it needs to heal this. And so it sends all those immune responses to that space in an attempt to heal it. Another way that I can explain this to you is like hay fever, because we understand hay fever a little bit easier. So when you have hay fever or allergies, pollen goes up your nose and there is a reaction towards that pollen like it is major, like it is a huge problem. Your body is reacting in a way that it thinks, oh my God, there's this huge amount of problem with these pollens in my nose. And so it overreacts towards it. You get a runny nose, you get runny eyes, you get sneezing, you get this massive reaction towards this pollen. But pollen is not dangerous. Like if you think about it, it's just, some plant matter. But your body has decided that actually pollen is a huge problem. And so it reacts in this extreme way. And interestingly, there is a lot of overlap with women who have endometriosis tendency towards also having allergies. Now, the reason for that is that reaction is a histamine reaction. So histamine gets released and there is this reaction. And what we find is that histamine elevation is very common. And so often women find that by taking an antihistamine, obviously the pollen goes down, but also there is a correlation there with endometriosis. And I always like to dig a little bit deeper. Why is there this happening? Why is the body overreacting? Why is the body thinking that pollen is a huge issue? And more importantly, why is the body reacting thinking that endometriosis dispersed cells are a huge issue? Because if it didn't think it was a huge issue, it would just go and clean it up. Or in the case of hay fever or allergies, it would just go sneeze and then would be all over. We wouldn't even have any major reaction towards that. Now, what I found was that I did have a lot of allergies, and those allergies, actually interesting, only developed when I immigrated to Australia. Now, what I found was when I actually started working on my health, on my body, on my liver particularly, those allergies went away. And that's where we're doing this interesting loop here, because for me, when I look at allergies and that overreaction by the immune system, what I see is some kind of toxin, some kind of like confusion in the body. There's this toxin in the body and it's creating this overreactive state. And there's different factors as to why that could happen. But generally there's, I think, some kind of trigger, some kind of, pressure on the body. And that could be viral, that could be bacterial, that could be some kind of emotional trauma. There could be a fall. Any kind of trauma on the body is going to have this reactive state that happens in that moment. But it's almost as if once the body's in that reactive state, we need to find it come back down to grounding that. And in some cases, that's releasing toxins. In some cases, that's healing, whatever that imbalance is. So if there's bacterial imbalances, healing that. If there's, Candida or H. pylori or anything like that, that needs to go because those reactions are going to keep happening. Or if it's an emotional trauma, we need to release that from the body because emotional trauma is still held in the cells, in memory in those cells. And so it's still in this hyper state. So if you guys feel like sharing, feel free to let me know if this makes sense, if I'm confusing the crap out of you, if you want to share your own experience, if there has been things that you can kind of go, oh, yes, that makes sense. That may have triggered something in me, that sort of hyper state. Or if none of this makes sense to you, feel free to share that too, because then I can help you and I can understand where you're coming from and where you're at within your journey, because we're all in different places and our understanding of things is all going to be a little bit different. So the more you can tell me, the better. I'm going to try some more of my tea now. Hopefully it's cooled down a bit by now. That is so good. Rosemary tea. You've got to try it. It's so lovely. I don't know if people don't like rosemary, I guess then it wouldn't be lovely, but I love it. It's so nice. Okay, so if we come back to our kind of analysis of the three areas, the hormone imbalance could be causing estrogen dominance. That estrogen dominance then creates inflammation because you've got that cycle with the histamine. And then that inflammation is also contributed by the immune system responding to those dispersed cells in hyperdrive. So when we go about treating this, we actually focus more on the basics initially. We want to get the body into a state of calm, because when you're in hyperdrive, and often that hyperdrive is made worse by our thoughts, our life situations, so if you're in a state of stress, if you're anxious about endometriosis itself, like if you're constantly worrying about the endometriosis, if you're constantly thinking the worst, it's spreading, I'm never going to get pregnant, it's taking over my whole body, all those kinds of thoughts, you're creating a hyperdrive state. So we really want to shift that way of thinking. We really want to come back into a place of groundedness and trust. And I know that's hard. I know that's so hard because I've been there. I totally get it. I totally get how overwhelming endometriosis can feel. But our thoughts are powerful. And if we come into our body with this hyper state, we're not supporting healing. So coming back to that parasympathetic, which is where we want to be. Parasympathetic is that space in the nervous system where the body wants to heal. The body wants to be calm. It wants to digest. That's where we're going to achieve that. When we're in hyper state, we're in sympathetic. And when we're in sympathetic, the body is not thinking about healing. It's just, I've got to get through this. And so we really want to be mindful of the words we're using, how we're thinking about ourselves, how we're thinking about the body, our journey with endometriosis so far. Is there emotional healing around that needs to happen? I know for so many women, they just get dismissed. They don't get a proper diagnosis for years. They get treated like they're an idiot or their pain is imagined by doctors, husbands, friends, family. That in itself can feel very traumatic because now you've got this feeling of no one's listening. Why is nobody listening to me? And so that in itself is thinking about that it's going to drive up anxiety. So honoring that journey and honoring that where you are now, and maybe releasing some of that, you know. But that's your first point of call, is coming back to groundedness. How do you do that? How do you release some of the stress in your life? Maybe it's re-looking at your current life situation. Is there work that you could let go? Could you change careers? I know that's drastic, but if that is contributing to your stress and anxiety, maybe it's something worth considering. Maybe it's reframing your current life situation. So maybe there's nothing you can do about it. How can you reframe it or look at it differently so it doesn't feel so overwhelming or create such anxiety in you? Sometimes it's just re-looking at something in a different way, and that can actually make you feel better. Sometimes it's just using humor and letting things go and just going, well, it is what it is. I can't change it. It is what it is. And not reading too much into it and not taking it all on board as your own responsibility, which I know is something that I struggled with for many, many years. I took everything on board as my own responsibility and wanted to save everybody. And it's just not possible. So at some point I had to let that go. So, look at that. Look at your grounding in terms of your thoughts, because those are the most powerful thing. Also look at the grounding in terms of, are you truly supporting your body's healing abilities? Are you eating in a rush? Are you not eating nourishing foods? Are you just shoving something in your mouth just to stop the growling tummy, going, I'm hungry, just feed me? Really thinking about that. How am I supporting my body? What foods can I eat that are truly nourishing for my body, that it needs to feel well, that are going to provide me with all the nutrients it needs to therefore produce the hormones that I need, support the liver so that it can detoxify, support my digestive system so it can flush out excess hormones, reduce inflammation, which really easy to do with your diet. What can I do in terms of that, really supporting myself? That is part of that grounding. And not looking at it like, oh, I have to eat this way. I'm on the endo diet. I can't have all these foods, because guess what that's doing? Back into anxiety state, back into worry state. It's not about doing a perfect diet. It's about, how am I nourishing my body today? What am I doing today? Am I really, this choice that I'm making right now? So let's say you're at a coffee shop and you're deciding what to eat. Is the choice that I'm making right now providing or taking away from my body? Is it supporting me? Is it giving me nourishment on the highest level? Or is it devoid of that? So every choice we make every single day adds up. And when we provide for the body and really nourish the body, we provide optimal nutrition. You're creating an environment where the body is now nourished. Now, here's an interesting one to think about. When you're well nourished, guess what's not going to feel? It's not going to feel like this. Because part of the reason your body might be feeling like this is because it actually doesn't have what it needs. It's like, I always imagine like a child screaming, it's hungry. It's not getting what it needs, and so it cries. It's kind of like that. Your body is like, I need more nourishment. Please give me more nourishment. And then you shove some hamburger down your throat and you're like, and then the body's reacting like this. So how are you truly nourishing your body? How are you really supporting your body? That's part of that grounding. These are honestly the basics, and they are incredibly powerful, but we dismiss them because we think, well, this is endo. I've got stage 4. I need to do more advanced stuff. I need to have all these treatments, blah, blah, blah. No, we need to provide an environment where the body can heal. It's got everything that it needs to heal. Let me just make this very, very clear, because there's a lot of misinformation online. The endo diet or a specific diet doesn't heal the body. There is no such thing as eat this diet and you will be cured or you will be healed. That's not how it works. What we're doing is we're providing an environment for the body with everything that it needs. So we're sourcing out, okay, where can I find the best nourishment for my body? What foods are out there that I can put into my body that are going to maximize everything that I can give it? And how can I move my body in the best possible way so it feels like the blood is circulating well, the lymphatic system is working well? What can I do? What other things can I do within my environment, in terms of what's around me, what's available to me that I can provide for my body so it can feel well and nourished and supported? Does that make sense to you guys? Can you see the difference? It's not take this, eat this equals this result. It's not how it works. Supplements supplement what you're doing. If you're stressed to the hilt, you're not sleeping, your digestive system's not functioning well, you've got a whole lot of imbalances in your digestive system, all those supplements you're taking, they're just literally going down the toilet. You haven't created an environment where the body can absorb that, where it can take that on. And besides the fact that I'm not a huge fan of supplements, because it's not about the supplements, it's about matching what your body can absorb. And what your body can absorb comes from nature. Those synthetics that you're taking in, they're not from nature. Your body doesn't even know what half of that stuff is. So really question that. What are you doing in terms of that grounding? Any questions, guys? Feel free to share your thoughts or your questions. No questions. Let me just check. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, there's a whole lot of questions. I must have missed these. Okay. Let's have a look. So, Morgan, thanks for submitting your question. I'm just going to pop that on the screen so everyone can see. So Morgan says she's got a cyst on a fallopian tube and the left ovary has begun tethering to the uterus. They told me I need excision surgery to get pregnant. Is there anything I can do naturally? Yes, you can. So the cysts can be shrunk naturally. We do have a program specifically designed for shrinking cysts, and it works. I had a client who came to me with several cysts and they wanted to do surgery. She was very anti-surgery and she said to me, look, Mel, I have 6 weeks and then they're going to insist on surgery because her cysts were quite large and they were worried that they were going to burst. And so we threw everything at it and literally tackled the cysts from every angle. I will admit that she was already doing a lot of the groundwork. So she was already eating quite a well-balanced diet. She was doing a lot of the exercise components, and we'd worked on a lot of her stress response. She did a very stressful job, so that was a big part of it. And recognizing the power of the mind. So really looking at, what she was doing in terms of that. But yes, we shrunk her cysts in 6 weeks. So it is possible. The ovary attaching to the uterus is adhesions. So what's happening there is heightened inflammation. And that inflammation is heightened because of various factors. But when you lower inflammation in the body and really lower things that trigger inflammation, then you won't have that response anymore. So that hyperdrive that I was talking about, your body's trying to heal, part of that picture is the adhesions themselves. So part of that is your body's thinking, well, there's a problem here. I need to create adhesions, because that's scarring is part of that picture, is trying to heal. So that will have an effect on your inflammatory response, and therefore the development of adhesions. There are massage techniques that you can use to slowly pull apart those adhesions very, very gently, or you can go for more advanced massage treatments to achieve the same thing. The one that you want to look at is called Visceral Massage, or you can just go onto my YouTube channel and you'll find the Mayan massage, which is very, very easy to do. And there's a demonstrator video on how to do it, which basically shows you how to just create circulation in that abdominal space. So really, really key, because what's often happening is there's actually what Chinese medicine describes as stagnation. So the organs are not moving, the blood's not moving. So there's literally the waste removal is poor in the area, all sorts of things going on. But by doing the Mayan massage, you're creating circulation, blood flow, lymphatic flow, and that can allow the toxins to get released, but also for all the good nutrients that you're now eating to come into that space. So really powerful. I hope that makes sense. PCOS and endo. So really look at your sugar, how much sugar you're eating in your diet. Let me know if that makes sense, if you're having a lot of sugar in your diet. Sugar is highly inflammatory and will contribute to that inflammation going up. So huge. Really want to eliminate sugar, especially if you've got the PCOS as well. So that's a big factor, is just too much insulin. So yeah, let me know if that makes sense, Morgan. So and she's saying, I'll just put that one as well. So she's got massive hormonal imbalance, so have severe drop post-ovulation. Yeah, so really look at sugar as a big contributor to hormone imbalance as well. So it's the basics, I promise, it's the basics. Because generally, and I bet you there's an aspect there that you're not sleeping, because if you're not sleeping, you get tired. When you're tired, you want sugar because you want that pick-me-up. So we tend to rely on sugar as a pick-me-up. So let me know if that makes sense, Morgan. Yeah. And Julie's saying she's on Neutrogestin. I don't know what that one is. There's so many. I'll just have a look. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, so it's progesterone. So just wanted to know what sort of progesterone is it? It looks like a synthetic type, but feel free to let me know. As I mentioned, Julie, endometriosis is not a hormone-based condition. So yes, you may have support to help you with the hormone imbalance over a period of time, but you want to be sure that you're looking after everything underneath that to really tackle what's going on with endometriosis. Hormone imbalance and treating just hormone imbalance is something I see more as like a symptom relief. So, okay, I'll just take this for a period of time until I feel better, until I can work out the underlying factors here. But you want to be working on the other organs at the same time. You want to be looking at your liver health, because your liver is ultimately the biggest thing that you want to look at when it comes to hormone imbalance. There is very likely some kind of imbalance in the liver. There's some sort of toxins, there's some reason the liver is strained. And yes, you can take progesterone for a period of time, but ultimately, is it really alleviating the reason for the hormone imbalance? And really want you to address that. Okay, so it's bioidentical progesterone. Okay. Yeah, like as I say, just look a bit deeper. How long are you going to take that for? And what are the long-term consequences of that? Are you training your body to become dependent? Why is it not producing its own progesterone? Estrogen, progesterone need to be in balance. If there's too much estrogen, yes, we bring up progesterone, but why can't we do this naturally? Maybe it's a case of just bringing down the estrogen. Really look at that. Really look at why is that imbalance there? And how do you correct that naturally rather than relying on these things? If we have to take anything long term, we have to ask ourselves what's going on. Why is there that imbalance? Because it's not really treating it at the end of the day. So yeah, but if you're doing lots of other things, that's awesome. Let me know, if you want support in any of that. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, is there any other questions that you guys have in terms of the treatment system, essentially, that I've shared with you today? I know there's a lot, and I'm super excited because we are literally launching a introductory course on all of those components, and it goes into a little bit more detail specifically on those three things. And I've got lots of references for research to show you all of those things. And what's really cool about it is when you approach the body and when you approach endometriosis, tackling those three things, you're actually addressing endometriosis. You're not looking at the consequences of things. You're not looking at symptoms of things. You're actually addressing the reason and the triggers and, bringing down the inflammation in itself. That's part of the picture of what endometriosis is. It's that heightened inflammation. So when we do that, we bring down inflammation, which brings down that immune response towards those dispersed cells, which, guess what? When we don't have that extreme reaction, when the body is no longer reacting to those dispersed cells like it's in hyperdrive, it's just going to clean them away. Like, it's literally just going to clean those cells away, and you won't have that endometriosis anymore. Like, does that make sense to you guys? Does that, it's just mind-blowing that is all we need to do. But yet we make it so complicated and so big, and you have to have surgery and you have to have all these organs removed and you have to, it's not. It's literally understand, why is the body in hyperdrive? How do we lower that response? And when there's no longer hyperdrive, the immune system can respond properly and how it should be, and can be redirected with the right immune responses. And then there's no longer that need to hyperreact and, send essentially the wrong immune responses to those cells. Does that make sense? Do you guys get what I'm saying with all that, or am I overcomplicating things for you? Okay, so if you want to get access to that free course, let me know and I will make sure that you get access. It is close. It's very close. We have just a few more things. I just want to make sure that it's all running smoothly and everything works. So it shouldn't be too far away. So feel free to let me know if you'd like that. Now, one of the things I guess I need to talk about as well with endometriosis is our belief around it and what is possible. Because I know that for many of you, you're going to be like, okay, Mel, how do you get off saying this? I don't quite believe that it is possible, or there's doubt. And so one of the other things that we're launching is essentially a documentary called Seeds of Hope. And it is basically stories of women who've achieved the thing that you desperately want to achieve. These are women who've had initial diagnoses of stage 4 endometriosis who now literally got back a diagnosis of they barely have endometriosis. There's been women who've had ovaries stuck to bowels that are no longer stuck. There are countless stories of women who've achieved these things. And just by being here, I know that you are somebody who wants those things and who is prepared to do whatever it takes to achieve those things. And so I really want to thank you for trusting in being here and trusting in what I'm sharing, because I know how there is a lot of disbelief. There is a lot of lack of information, or information that indicates that we have to have surgery for everything. There's a lot of pressure by doctors and surgeons to have those surgeries. There is a lot of fear around endometriosis. And so the fact that you're here shows that you're prepared to explore different options. And so, trust in that. Trust that you're here for a reason. Trust that you found me for a reason, because, those aren't the only options. There are lots and lots of different ways that you can treat this. And, the natural method makes sense when you get it. When you don't get it, it feels really scary. And I know for myself, it felt very much like that can't possibly be enough. But here's something I want you to think about. Your body put the endometriosis there, so your body can unput it there. That is the biggest thing. Is it's not some foreign thing. It's not a piece of plastic that's stuck inside your body. They're cells that are made from your own body. And so if your body put them there, your body can unput them there. If your body created adhesions, your body can dissolve adhesions. If your body created cysts, it can dissolve those cysts. So really think about that. I mean, it's like, if you get a pimple on your face, your body can get rid of the pimple. It's not that, I know it's quite different, but, it's the idea is that your body created it, your body can uncreate it. So it's really about, why is your body creating it, and how do you support the body so that it recognizes that this is not something that it needs to hyperreact towards. It can just clean it up. There are very cool cells in the immune system called NK cells, and I'll pop them in the comments. NK cells, this is a giveaway for you guys because you're still here, so I'll give you some extras. Can you see that? I don't know if you guys can see that. Maybe I need to go into host chat. I'm not sure how this thing works. Yeah, NK cells. Okay, so NK cells are those cells that are part of the immune system, and they are like Pac-Man. So their job is literally to find rogue cells in the body. And a lot of the research around NK cells is based on cancer cells, because they do the same thing. They go around and they eat up rogue cells, cancer cells. Now, when you think about what endometriosis is, it's essentially a cell in the wrong place. And we want those NK cells to go around and eat those up. And studies have shown that women with endometriosis have low levels of NK cells. So guess what? If we just support the immune system in building up those NK cells, we're going to build up our Pac-Man, who can then gobble up the endometriosis. And then we don't have endometriosis anymore. So I'm simplifying. Please know that I'm simplifying. But I really want to give you guys some hope here and some takeaways. So what are some of the things that you can do to support those NK cells? Well, it comes back to food is one of the biggest things. One of the biggest ones is actually the mushrooms. So mushroom powders are incredibly powerful for the immune system. I'm going to give you guys a free takeaway. The turkey tail mushroom is the one that you want. Okay, so turkey tail is really the most powerful one to really support those NK cells. And you can get turkey tail mushrooms, but honestly, I found it really hard to find. So I ended up just getting the turkey tail mushroom powder. And then you just chuck it in your smoothie, and you don't taste it because, it's mushroom. It's not nice. But very, very incredibly powerful to boost those NK cells and therefore have more Pac-Man to basically eat away your endometriosis. So yeah, so that is just a little giveaway for you guys in terms of the immune system, really supporting the immune system and that bigger picture of getting rid of the overreactive scenes by the immune system. So they are essentially drivers of that immune system that are elevated. So within the immune system, there are some immune cells that are getting activated that are in hyperdrive, but then there are others that are not. And NK cells has been shown to be one of those that are actually lower levels. If anyone has ever heard of the Gerson Institute, they also established that essentially these NK cells were lower with women with endometriosis. And so by supporting that, we're therefore supporting the correct immune cells that we want with endometriosis. Okay, anyone else got any other questions, any other things they want to ask me about this? If you want to get free access to the course, please let me know. I'll be sure to also put it on the website soon. So once it's launched, it will be available on the website at endoempowered.com. I'll put a direct link in at the top here once this goes onto YouTube. And if you have any questions, if there's anything you'd like me to cover in one of these lives, please feel free to write to us at support@endoempowered.com. We want women to know that there are ways that you can feel better with having endo. There are ways that you can support the body so it can do the healing. It is not a case of just live with it and bear with the pain. There are definitely ways to support your body. And so if there's questions about this, if you're not sure how to do this, if you want to know more information, please reach out to us and we look forward to supporting you. Thanks so much for being here. Okay, bye.